What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Opendoor. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Opendoor had a pretty epic Friday, went up 9.58%. So a lot of the broader market's going to look for that positivity and that momentum to roll over into this upcoming week. So Monday, we don't really have that much for data. So Dallas Fed manufacturing. Aside from that, on Tuesday, this is where you have PPI, retail sales, ADP employment, the weekly number. A lot of that is going to change the outlook of this. And because of, luckily enough, Williams on Friday saying that there is a good possibility of a December rate cut, this did shoot this up. So right now there is a 71% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut for the upcoming December 10th meeting. And with a lot of this key data on Tuesday, that could really push this and solidify that. So again, something just to keep in mind. And on a side note, that would be huge for a lot of growth stocks. And I think generally the market was starting to assume that we weren't going to get one. So it's kind of all over the place. On Tuesday, we also do have at 10 a.m. consumer confidence. That one has actually moved the broader market quite significantly in the past. And then on Wednesday, we do have initial jobless claims alongside mortgage applications and mortgage market index. For Wednesday, we don't really have that much. And plus, on a side note, it is not necessarily a shorter week, but because of Black Friday, Thursday, the market does close at 1 o'clock, I do believe. Friday is a normal day, a normal trading day. And this is conveniently the one time of year I like to look at a lot of the key data. And so for instance, what I mean by that is, for those of you that are American, especially working in some kind of tech or banking sectors, most individuals take Friday off, and that's no different than shorts. So for those of you, again, that watch a lot of my videos, I analyze what shorts do. And so for instance, on Friday, they increased 539,000 shares. So going into this upcoming week, 20.75% of the free float's being shorted, works out to be 137.48 million shares. So I always like to analyze what they do. And so for instance, on the Friday, because as I mentioned, most people and shorts, bankers, they take that day off. So it's very interesting to see as far as kind of the activity from shorts. And so for instance, if you see Opendoor shorts just quiet, crickets, not doing anything on Friday, it is fair to assume that most of the entities that short Opendoor are American. Whereas if you still see the same level of kind of activity, it is fair to assume that it is a international based company, either from Canada, Europe, or something like that. And unfortunately, based on 13Fs, institutions do not have to disclose their short position. It is completely voluntary. So for instance, if we go over here, you see some ETFs and some institutions outright disclosing that they have puts and shorts, but in all fairness, most of them are hiding. And so this is why I've said in the past, anyone who has disclosed saying that they have one share, so if I kind of scroll down a little bit, so anyone that has, for instance, disclosing 2 shares, 10 shares, they most likely are shorting. They just want to kind of paint the picture that they are long. So in general, I'm kind of excited for this upcoming Friday just to analyze that data. But specific to Opendoor, there really isn't all that much in news. They did also start to do that distribution. So you can kind of see some people posting about the warrants, and that as well is one possible attributing factor why Opendoor did go down so much. So even if we look at some of the actual trading, so on the 19th, 18th, 17th, all very red, some people just don't want a dividend. And this is how technically the warrants were coded. It was a dividend. So for tax purposes, some people actually avoid this type of action. So they probably would have sold, and then the couple days after, possibly even on Friday, they would have purchased their stock back. Again, a lot of that is just for tax purposes, and it most likely is a lot of the bigger players in the game. But nonetheless, though, that's also maybe something that could have affected the recent price action. Aside from all that stuff though, looking at the options going into this upcoming week, Bulls are anticipating for it to be roughly around $8. So definitely a lot of upside is anticipated. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 6. So a lot more upside is anticipated based on all that. With it closing on Friday at 675, that does mean that the 650 and below strike prices are in the money. You don't really see anything, so you see about 1,000 at that $6 strike price, and that's it. Looking forward into this upcoming week, you have 7,000 at that 7, 1,000 at the 750, and then 2,000 at the 8. So overall, options activity has dropped dramatically. So most likely you're not going to be seeing any gamma squeeze or anything going into this upcoming week. On a side note, you did see some very abnormal transactions. So these are all the transactions occurring on the dark pool, or sorry, on the secondary market on Friday. Big one was 121.6 million. So some institution did really want to get in. You also had multiple right here. It looks like a duplicate, 6.75 million, and that was just was it all after hours? And there was roughly around, was it 12, 13 of them, something like that. But yeah, a lot of big money was getting in through the dark pool. Big one for that exchange was 3.75 million, 3.3, 3.3. So again, looks like another repetitive order. And usually what does happen is, since it's kind of level, that usually means it's a hedge fund. So hedge funds were clearly getting in, so that's kind of a good sign going into this upcoming week. Right now with it at 675, it is trading between this pivot and this S1. So 657 is going to be a strong support. 790 followed by 922 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. So kind of just watch for a lot of that. Aside from all that fun stuff on the actual chart itself, things still don't look too great. Still wedge bound between that 10-day moving average and that 100. So not necessarily the best. Friday was showing that it actually had some signs of life, which is always welcomed. But in order for you to see a nice push higher, it needs to get above that 10 and also that 50-day moving average, which is usually big deals for momentum stocks. So that 10-day moving average right now is sitting at 774. 50-day moving average is sitting at 793. Aside from that, that 100-day moving average is 557. So if it does break below that, then you could see some quite significant consolidation. So I think the broader market has been very fearful over not getting a potential rate cut, as well as a lot of poor consumer data. So a lot of that fear could really change in this week, even though, like I said, it's kind of a shorter week mentally in some cases, but in all fairness, it could be that nice catalyst that the broader market does need to really push things higher. So this is going to be a very big week for growth stocks, for Opendoor. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. One final thing, if you are looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades on here. So I just launched a stacked account, and I do have a Black Friday promotion where it is $10 a month, and I'll give you all the swing trades. So even though the market's been kind of up and down, put out some massive bangers there. So definitely worthwhile to kind of take advantage of that. Like I said, promotion. But with all that said, I appreciate all of you guys watching.